Welcome to Behind the Drums. In today's episode, we're going to be going in depth on Cameo's first US top 40 hit, Word Up, from their 13th album of the same name. Released in 1986 on Mercury Records, Word Up garnered significant acclaim, becoming one of the band's most well-known songs. Like Cameo's previous hit, Single Life, Word Up begins with a short interpretation of the opening notes heard in Ennio Morricone's The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Word Up was written by Larry Blackmon and Tommy Jenkins, with drum programming duties left to Sammy Merendino, who will be joining us today. Sammy is a highly in-demand session drummer and was one of the most sought-after drum programmers in the 80s and 90s. His credits include drum programming on Cameo's Single Life, Candy, and Sophie B. Hawkins' Damn I Wish I Was Your Lover, just to name a few. Word Up was programmed on the Linn 9000 drum machine and had significant influence on drum sounds of many records in years to come. I had the pleasure of speaking with Sammy about how the song was made.
The way I hooked up with Cameo was I was at a Weather Girls session. It was at Parks House Studios. And I was doing this Weather Girls, their second record, and Larry walked in, and I was just sitting there while they were doing some overdubs on the track I did. And he was in looking for a studio. So he came in and asked, they said, "Hey, who's the drummer on this record?" And I just looked up, I said, "Me." And I looked up and it was Larry. And I was like, I was like, Larry. And he says, "You want to do our next record?" I said, "Sure." So it was just kind of a chance, being in the right place at the right time. He liked the sounds I was getting. And so that became the Single Life album. So that was the first album I did with him. So the writing process for the song, Larry had the whole song mapped out in his head before we even started. So I walked in there and he sang me the beat to play. And so I programmed the beat and then I laid it out in the length of the song so that I could add little fills here and there. Instead of like doing separate patterns and just switching the patterns, I would lay it out as the full length of the song as we worked it out, and then just add in all the fills. There's only a few, very simple. But Larry had that whole song vision complete in his head before we even started. He knew what it was going to be. I remember when I got it. As a matter of fact, the Word Up bass drum is the first sample I made on that machine, and it was a mistake. I went to record, I got the sampling card, and I was at Media Sound with my friend Tim Hadville, an engineer, and we were waiting to do a session. We had some time. So I said, let's try to make some samples. So I went in there and we plugged it in, and I went in there and kicked the bass drum, and I came in to listen to it. It was all distorted. It was like, it was this real dirty sound. And I went, well, I think we overloaded it. I said, I'm going to keep it. I might use it for something. And sure enough, I put that sample with the stock Linn 9000 sample, and that became the bass drum for Word Up. Well, the snare sound, that was a combination of people working on that, I got to say. There was the engineer, Eric Calvi, was instrumental in that, Larry having the vision to do that, and myself. And so it's pretty simple what it really was. There was, we were quad recording. That's where we did the record. And there was this huge hallway that went downstairs that went down from the 11th floor we were on. So Larry went out in that hallway, clapped his hands right into an AMS, and that's it. It was that simple. And it was just, Larry didn't want any reverb on anything, although it was kind of, a reverberant sound in that hallway, but no reverb on that whole record. If you listen to it, it's bone dry, but that was the sample right into an AMS and then triggered. I think it was was a Snare 12. I think it was the Single Life snare, but it's mostly that hand clap. It's like, I would say it's probably 90% that hand clap, if not almost all that. It was just right in, and the AMS added a little bit of dirt to it as well. It was kind of grainy when you would sample into that. I'm pretty sure that the hi-hat was the stock Linn 9000 hi-hat, although it was 40 years ago, so I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was. The white noise sound that we used on that was made with the Simmons SGS-7. I just turned the samples off and just used the noise filter on there, and I had 2 of them, so I would pitch them and change them to filter them a little bit for that. I think the drum programming and the sound of that record changed everything. Because before that, records, they were very wet. Snare drums were big and wet and long. And like I was saying earlier, this record, Larry didn't want any reverb. Everything was tight and dry and in your face. And I think that was instrumental in changing things over for the next couple of years. I was fortunate to have a part of that, but it's like, that's just where things go.
I'd like to give a huge thank you to Sammy for taking the time to talk with me. In today's recreation, I will be focusing on 3 of the main sections that appear in Word Up while using Sammy's original Linn 9000 sounds. Let's get into it. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and drop a comment below if you have any drum machines or songs you'd like me to cover in future episodes. See you in the next one.